Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Seen Beyond and Through with Monty. Right before you, I present Pose star Billy Porter. Billy Porter has been making a lot of noise the past couple of days and getting a lot of comments for his stance that the black community is equivalent to white supremacy and that they have been oppressing members of the LBGT gay community. Now, in case you're not really sure what Mr. Porter has said, I will bring it up.
Because y'all ain't gonna like this one. As a black queer man in America, my basic human rights have been up for legislation every single day that I have had breath in my body from all sides. And by that, I mean that the black community's relationship with the LGBTQ plus community is appalling at best and eerily similar to that of white supremacists versus black folk. Hear me, black people, and hear me well. I'm calling y'all out right here and right now. You cannot expect our demands of equality to be met with any real legislative policy and change when y'all turn around and inflict the same kind of hate and oppression on us.
Okay. That little diatribe. I really do want to go back to that, and
Let's go even deeper.
I want to examine this piece by piece and give a response to it as we're going along.
And black people hear me.
Notice he said, black people hear me. Okay, he did not say any type of people who are against or has prejudices or homophobia towards or basically against the LBGTQ community hear me. He specifically said black people.
Because y'all ain't gonna like this one. As a black queer man in America, my basic human rights have been up for legislation every single day that I have had breath in my body from all sides. And by that, I mean that the black community's relationship with the LGBTQ plus community is appalling.
Okay, so him as a black gay male or the LBGT community at large has been up for legislation by the black community? Really, what type of power does the black community has as a whole to oppress the LBGT community as a whole? Black people in this country are only like 12% of the U.S. population. They do not control anything. They do not control the economic, the military, the medical industrial complex. They do not control, let's say, the basic infrastructure of America to do any type of oppressing. So I don't really know what he's talking about right then and there. And he talks about the black community's relationship with the LBGTQ community has been appalling. But what about the white LBGT community's relationship with non-white members of their community? That's appalling too. And is he going to pretend like there's no racism within the LBGT community towards the black community? Let's go on.
At best, and eerily similar to that of white supremacists.
Okay, that's a new low right there. Eerily similar to white supremacists. When has the black community have gone around lynching members of the LBGT community? When have black police officers routinely have murdered members of the LBGT community? Black people here in the United States of America only control 1% of the wealth. So how have they oppressed you in terms of housing, rental, employment, banking, redlining, anything like that? You're going to have to explain that to me.
Versus black folk. Hear me, black people, and hear me well. I'm calling y'all out right here And right now, you cannot expect our demands of equality to be met with any real legislative policy and change.
Okay, what policy change that we can grant members of the LBGT community at being 12% of the U.S. population and only controlling 1% of the wealth in the United States of America? What the hell is he smoking?
When y'all turn around and inflict the same kind of hate and oppression on us.
That's a lie right there. Keep in mind, he's talking about the LBGT community at large. When black homophobia is displayed, and there is some black homophobia there, are anti-LBGT sentiments there, it is usually only members of the black LBGT community who bear the brunt of it. The white LBGT community and others do not bear the brunt of that. Okay, so let's move forward right here. He doesn't seem to realize how dangerous his words are. His words are very weaponized. And what he's doing to me is that he's doing the bidding of the larger racist white LBGT community. And I do call them a very racist organization because they are. They have an agenda, their business, and their agenda is to push the rights of the white LBGTQ people first. Now he talks about being white supremacist towards them. But let me remind you all about this one thing. We can go back to violence against LGBTQ people since 1969. And there is no evidence whatsoever that the majority of the murders, killings, bashings were done by black people. In 1969, Howard Eflin checked into a Denver hotel in Los Angeles and was beaten to death by police officers. Were they white officers? No, they weren't. Police in the early mornings of 1969 raided the Stonewall Inn. Now, June 28, 1969 was the beginning of the Stonewall riots. That's when they raided that particular place again. Keep in mind, it was raided numerous times by white police officers. On that particular day, June 28, 1969, was the beginning of the Stonewall riots. It was not done by black officers. We can go through a lot of people. Harvey Milk being murdered, it was not done by a black person. We go by Tennessee Williams beaten to death by 5 teenage boys in Key West. I mean, we can go by Charlie Howard in 1984. Drowned in Maine for being a very flamboyant gay. Rebecca Wright. Venus Extravaganza, who knows who she was beaten by? We don't really know. James DePorolati, a gay Vietnam veteran, stabbed to death in New York. We can go by Brandon Tina and Brandon, Scott Almador. I mean, we can go by Matthew Shepard, Billy Jack Gaither. I mean, the list goes on and on. Steen Fernich, Arthur J. Warren, Philip Westland, Gwen Arreo. The majority of the beatings, bashings that have been done in America and murders by LBGTQ people have been done at the hands of white people. It has not been done at the hands of black people. Yes, some blacks have murdered and have bashed LBGTQ people. But the majority of those murders and bashings have been done at the hands of whites. Why isn't he addressing that? What about 15-year-old Lawrence King, who was shot twice by a classmate because he had a crush on a classmate? See, he's looking at this from a very, I think, shallow point of view about bashing. And what happens with a lot of black people, they don't seem to understand proximity crime. Looking at him, he seems to be very flamboyant. Okay, that's a style. A lot of times when you're very flamboyant, you're going to be picked on in school. But I'm willing to bet you the school that he went to, and the neighborhood that he was brought up in was a majority black neighborhood. That's called proximity bashing, proximity bullying. You're going to be bashed and bullied by the area or neighborhood that you grow up in. If it's majority black, the majority of the people who would be guilty of that particular crime or incidents obviously are black people. So what happens is that they take that into adulthood with them. And he seems to be very flamboyant. What I find with a lot of flamboyant people like this is that they love for the attention to be on them. I mean, they love to walk into a room and have all eyes on them. If they're not being praised or glorified, it bothers them. Their self-esteem goes down. They almost cannot do anything quietly. And does he think that because he's dressing others flamboyantly that people are just going to find this attractive? The black community is going to go ooh and ah because you're wearing a dress? Do I find this to be attractive? No, at all. I don't. I just don't. But that's the style, though. Pointers for being brave, yeah. This right there, look, I don't particularly care for it. So he's one of those types who would say because a black person says that I don't like your dresses that you're wearing, you must be anti-gay. No, I just don't like the style that you're wearing. That's all. Now, this is his husband. Funny. And I go back to again that he did not bring up any type of racism within the larger LBGTQ white community towards non-white members. It doesn't surprise me that a black male married to a white male would have that type of sentiment towards the black community, because looking at him, he probably considers himself queer first and black second. So therefore, there's a detachment, or not a connection to the black community. There's more of a attachment to the LBGTQ white community. And he's so proud with his white man. Okay, you should be proud of your partner. But I guess you shouldn't be proud because your partner's white. You should be proud because they're a good man. And I don't know that much about him, to be honest with you. I've not really, I don't think I've seen an episode of Pose. Actually, I haven't heard of him to Pose, to be honest with you. And I'm just wondering, is he the type who prefers white men? My guess is going to be yes. That would further explain his stance. And you're looking at someone, if they do have that particular stance right there, it's some type of brainwashing that they've have undergone that they have not shaken off. Obviously, he's not really proud to be black, I would say. And when I speak about the prejudices within the larger LBGTQ white community, this was the standard for the longest. Routinely, this was advertised. No Asians, no fats, no Hispanics, no femmes, no queens, no blacks, no trans, no Indians. That's still there. But because we're on social media and word can get around fast, people are afraid of the backlash. He didn't address that. He did not say anything about prejudices and racism within the larger LGBTQ white community. And by the way, I want to touch on this one thing too. Proposition 8, which was passed in, 2008? 2008, Prop 8, which banned marriage between same-sex couples. He talks about how the black community is so oppressive to the LBGT community, how they are denying rights to them, how they're like the white supremacy to them, how they're just holding them back and things like that. But let me remind you of something. The opposition to marriage equality. Opposition to marriage equality was like this: the Catholic Church, the Mormon Church, Church of Scientology, fundamentalist Christians, Union of Orthodox Jewish Congregations of America, Eastern Orthodox Church, Evangelical Christians, American Family Association, Focus on the Family, National Organization of Marriage, Saddleback Church, Pastor Rick Warren. All of those churches right there are majority white. And this is 2008. If I can jog my memory, this is going to be very close. It's going to be very close. The Mormon Church, 2008, was like 98% white. The Church of Scientology was like 95% white. The Catholic Church was like 73% white. Fundamentalist Christians are like 64 or 5% white. And all of those churches that I named, even the ones like, the National Organization of Marriage, Rick Warren's church, Focus of the Family, American Family Associations, all of those majority of white churches gave $50 million to defeat Prop 8, the rights for LBGTQ people to marry in California. You did not see a black church up there. That was the majority of white churches who gave that amount of money. It was well known. The majority of foot soldiers 2 years before the voting came in 2008, 2006, 2007 were majority white. He didn't touch on that. So I find it very odd, and maybe I shouldn't find it very odd, as to why he didn't touch on the racism within the LBGTQ community for not bringing those churches out, for not outing those churches for their non-support of them. And I find it very odd, too, that he is not talking about that. Or maybe with his partner, it shouldn't be that odd. So basically, he's focusing only on the black community, it seems, which tells me that he's not really well-read. He doesn't really know history. He's an actor, obviously, but not really an activist. And you can be gay and not really be an activist. To understand these things, you got to be read. You got to know history. You got to be fair. You got to be willing to accept the truth no matter what it is. So basically, all of that, what he just stated right then and there, just a bunch of BS. This flag right there. Non-white members of the LBGT community have been fighting for years to add color to that flag that represents brown, black, and trans people. The white LBGT community has refused. Transgendered women attacked in Dallas apparent mob violence. Majority, this is again what I spoke about, proximity violence. Majority of the people there are black because it's a majority of black area. Okay, brutal beating went viral. Majority black people because it was a majority of a black area. That's proximity violence. That's going to happen right then and there. He doesn't touch on that. So therefore, he doesn't realize how dangerous his words are. He doesn't realize what a puppet he's being used by the larger, dominant LBGT community, which I do believe is a very racist organization. I do believe that they have an agenda to push that it is the black community who is the most homophobic and the most anti-LBGTQ. He's pushing that agenda. His words are very weaponized because of the position that he has, because of the amount of followers he have on social media. It's a very dangerous thing to push right there. Because what's going to happen is that black LBGTQ people will suffer at the hands of white LBGTQ people in terms of that when funds, and I've heard of this before, when funds are distributed, they give pennies or crumbs rather, to black LBGTQ organizations. And he's just continually fostering a racism and hate within the LBGT white gay community. I never trusted him. I never really got a good vibe about him. I just didn't. Something about him just rubbed me the wrong way. I knew that behind all of this flash and flamboyance is really insecurity. They can't do anything quiet. He has to be the loudest chick in the room. And with his statement and stance right there that he, gave on his little IG page, he just basically proved my point. Well, people, that was another edition of Seeing Beyond and Through. And I will see you beyond and through. If you liked it, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and feel free to comment.